Hello. World faces deathly silence of nature as wildlife disappears, warn experts. Loss of intensity and diversity of noises in ecosystem reflects an alarming decline in healthy biodiversity, said sound ecologist. Sounds of the natural world are rapidly falling silent and will become acoustic fossils without urgent action to halt environmental destruction, international experts have warned. As technology develops, sound has become an increasingly important way of measuring the health and biodiversity of ecosystems. Our forests, soils, and oceans all produce their own acoustic signatures. Scientists who use these echoacoustics to measure habitats and species say that quiet is falling across thousands of habitats as the planet witnesses extraordinary losses in density and variety of species. Disappearing or losing volume along with them are many familiar sounds. The morning call of birds, rustle of mammals through undergrowth, and summer hum of insects. Today, tuning in to some ecosystems reveals a deathly silence, said Professor Steve Simpson from the University of Bristol. It is that race against time. We've only just discovered that they make such sounds, yet we hear the sound disappearing. The changes are profound, and they are happening everywhere, said U.S. soundscape recordist Bernie Krause, who has taken more than 5,000 hours of recordings from 7 continents over the past 55 years. He estimates that 70% of his archive is from habitats that no longer exist. Professor Brian Ujanowski from Purdue University in the US has been listening to natural sounds for 40 years and taken recordings from virtually all the world's main types of ecosystems. He said, "The sounds of the past that have been recorded and saved represent the sounds of species that might no longer be here. That's all we've got. The recordings that many of us have are of places that no longer exist, and we don't even know what those species are. In that sense, they are already acoustic fossils." Numerous studies are now documenting how natural soundscapes are changing, being disrupted, and falling silent. A 2021 study in the journal Nature of 200,000 sites across North America and Europe found pervasive loss of acoustic diversity and intensity of soundscapes across both continents across the past 25 years, driven by changes in species richness and abundance. The authors added, "One of the fundamental pathways through which humans engage with nature is in chronic decline, with potentially widespread implication for human health and well-being. A shift in the ecosystem sound is happening in the air, the forests, the soil, and even under the water." During the Cold War, the U.S. Navy used underwater surveillance systems to track Soviet submarines, and found they struggled to do so near coral reefs due to all the sounds reefs produced. It wasn't until 1990 that civilian scientists could listen to this classified data. Whenever we went to a healthy reef, it blew our minds. The cacophony of sounds we heard, said Simpson, who has been monitoring coral reefs using hydrophones for more than 20 years. A healthy reef was a carnival of sound. At the outset of his research, noise pollution from motorboats was his main concern, but 2015 and 2016 brought significant bleaching events, which resulted in 80% mortality of corals. "They cook the reef," he said. "More than half of the world's reef cover has now been lost since 1950. If global heating reaches 2 degrees centigrade, more than 99% of coral reefs are expected to start dying. The result of these bleaching events is a deathly silence," said Simpson. "We swam around these reefs, crying into our masks. These sounds and silences speak back to us like in a mirror," said Hildegard Westerkamp, a Canadian sound ecologist who has been recording soundscapes for half a century. during which time wildlife populations have experienced average declines of almost 70%. She started working on the World Soundscape Project in 1973 with the intention of documenting disappearing ecosystems. We propose to start to listen to the soundscape, to everything, no matter how uncomfortable it might be, how uncomfortable the message. She said, the act of listening itself can be both comforting and highly unsettling, but most importantly, it tends to connect us to the reality of what we are facing. Sound data is now being used alongside visual data as a way to monitor conservation efforts and ecosystem health. More sophisticated and cheaper recording equipment, as well as increasing concerns about environmental destruction, are driving the boom in acoustic monitoring. As the sophistication of microphones have increased, scientists are using them to monitor life that would not usually be audible to human ear. Marcus Meader, an acoustic ecologist and sound artist from Switzerland, has been investigating the sound and the noises trees make under stress, pushing a microphone into the bark of a tree to listen to the living tissue. Stress sounds like pulses come from within the cavity, he said. When we first pushed the microphone into the soil of a mountain meadow, he discovered that it was alive with noise, a completely new kingdom of sounds. Intensely managed agricultural land, often doused with pesticides, sounds very different. The soil becomes quiet. Many researchers, disappearing soundscapes are a source of grief as well as scientific interest. It is a sad thing to be doing, but it's also helping me tell a story about the beauty of nature. As a scientist, I have trouble explaining what biodiversity is, but if I play a recording and say what I'm talking about, these are the voices of this place. We can either work to preserve it or not. Sound is the most powerful trigger of emotions for humans. Acoustic memories are very strong too. I'm thinking about it as a scientist, but it's hard not to be emotional. These areas where we lost biodiversity, the calls of the animals, the rustling of the animals don't return. And if they do return, it's taking a lot longer than anticipated. These areas that are definitely quiet. This is from EcoWatch. Great Barrier Reef suffering record coral bleaching with damage 59 feet below the surface. This goes in detail about more about the severe bleaching event that I've been talking about for months now. This is the 5th mass coral bleaching in 8 years. It's unprecedented. And by the time that we're able to figure out just how important all this is the ecosystem in the water, it acts as a mass filtration device. It's gone before we could completely understand it. This is footage from April 11th. It looks like skeletons. What bleaching is to coral reef is heat stroke to a human being. It loses all its food as well and suffers these grand radical changes sweeping across fields of coral. It's dying because the planet might be dying. The world is 75% water. I don't think that is accurate. You see how much fresh water, drinking water. It's far less than that. But what we dump into the freshwater systems, dump into the oceans, including all of the toxic waste and pesticides that we've dumped into the oceans, and these concrete blocks. These blocks have a time limit. All of these demons from the past will come back to haunt us. As these waters become warmer, it's going to heat up the bottom of the ocean, the areas that hold our darkest secrets, where we put in concrete boxes, concrete crates, Agent Orange, all of them, everything. What are the odds that this concrete holds up another 20 years? What are the odds that pesticides that are leaking out of these giant, elaborate coffins that's causing bleaching, nuclear reactor water? It's all in here. Why are we acting like it's just the heat? It is heating up for reasons that we won't accept, because we would have to change humanity. We couldn't get people to wear a mask during a pandemic, couldn't even get people to believe that the virus was real, and we couldn't get people to take medicine that could save their life. Tens of thousands of lives were lost. What are the implications of losing biodiversity across the continent of the United States? What are the conditions that would destroy pollinators? What if we really are out of time, and what we are hurling ourselves into is a new epoch? It is deliriously devastating to read such accounts of people that have been listening, watching nature for so many decades say they've never heard such a silence before. It is deafening. It's just terrible. Along coastlines from Australia to Kenya to Mexico, many of the world's colorful coral reefs have turned a ghastly white into what scientists said on Monday amounted to, I believe it was the fourth global bleaching event in the last 3 decades. Bleaching is triggered by water temperature anomalies that cause corals to expel the colorful algae living in their tissues. Without the algae's help in delivering nutrients to these corals, the corals cannot survive. All that you see here is red, is alert level 2 bleaching. There is no level 3. This is it. So what we're seeing here is an abundance of bleaching in all of the oceans across the southern hemisphere. And you can mark my words here that next season change, the next axis tilt, the northern hemisphere will be experiencing equal or greater bleaching across the all the oceans and all the seas. All that is red. You can consider coral under all that red there be dying. Who knows how long coral can live without the algae? Not long. I, for one, have not seen evidence of algae returning to coral reef after they've been expunged. Oh. when the algae is ejected from the coral reefs. It's not like the coral reefs become healthy again. That's it. We shouldn't be holding on to the hope that the coral reefs will somehow magically get better and survive. What we're seeing here is all this red is level 2 coral bleaching, the most severe level. Level 1 isn't great either. So between the two levels that would affect coral reefs the most, it's happening all across the southern hemisphere. And when this axis tilts, it will be equal or worse or greater in the northern hemisphere. Florida especially is going to be at great risk since they lost much of their seascape over the last few years. Lose the sea roots, seagrass. Now that we're looking at it is a very dire situation, very horrible position that we have ourselves in as a species, is that we think that we're doing the right thing where I can't even get my family to stop using pesticides in their garden. What hope do we have if we can't even convince the people that we trust the most? Stop using Roundup, stop using all these chemicals. Why? There's just no reason for it, besides stupidity, not knowing. Now we have an alarming, half the globe is experiencing bleaching. There is no recovery from this. I have not seen coral reefs recover from bleaching events. So, what? This is dire. I don't want to doomsay and doom scroll, but this is important, especially that we know that there's going to be an equal or greater response come the northern hemisphere. UN Climate Chief. We have 2 years to save the world from climate crisis. We are running out of time to take action on climate change, says Diamond Steel, Executive Secretary of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. In a speech titled 2 Years to Save the World, Steele emphasized that governments, development banks, and business leaders must take steps to avert much more serious impacts of the climate crisis within that time frame. For those who say that climate change is only one of many priorities like ending poverty, ending hunger, ending pandemics or improving education. I simply say this: none of these crucial tasks, indeed none of these sustainable development goals, will be possible unless we get the climate crisis under control. So he's saying that people are pulling that they want more climate change action. Not enough is being done to save the environment. Too much development is destroying our woods, our forests, our jungles, our trees. We're running out of trees. And the difference between science fiction and fantasy are trees. We don't want to dip into science fiction. We want to stay in fantasy. We just want to keep our trees. We don't want to lose them, that's for sure. But replanting a few trees after cutting down trees that are hundreds of years old is not a substitute. It's far more complicated than anyone can possibly admit, knowing what. But from the pieces that we have, we can't live without the oceans. The oceans become poison, they boil over, however you want to put it. But know this, that it seems like everyone is nervous. There is no safe place to go when it comes to climate change. It is globally world over, just like a pandemic. There's no safe place. Climate change can enter a lot of new realities, such as coastal loss. We could be losing a great deal of our sandbars and beaches. These are just the first few things that come out of mind. We can't lose these as a species. It's just what we see every day. Despair. Because it seems like the people that are able to do anything about this and make the decisions to stop fossil fuel engagement so much with what? Planes? And stop flying so many planes all day? You can try to blame vehicles as much as you want, but planes are in the thousands of gallons, and there's over 90,000 flights a day in the United States alone. So it's going to take a great effort to pull back, but it's also storage, which oil and gasoline there is. We're not supposed to use it while it's there. Does that mean we stop drilling and just rely on our reserves? No one's going to want to do anything of this sort, even if their own backyard was flooded with oil. Doesn't make any sense. Why, regarding all the science in our face and just the reality that there is the realities that we're facing, that we're seeing unfold, are detrimental to the human species' future. Success of our species depends on the success of our environments that allow success to be enabled. Without these regions, without safe places for people to be, instead of just having these little sacrificial zones, and then everything becomes a sacrificial zone though. You can't control the chaos. You can't label an area a sacrificial zone and expect the poison not to spill out to other cities and areas and regions. You don't know what a sacrificial zone is. It is a region especially in the United States, where there's a lot of heavy industry and people that live by it are certain of sacrificial type. This is ProRepublica. It's their sacrifice zones. The most detailed map of cancer-causing industrial air pollution in the United States. That's just what they have access to. Another day. Polluters are turning neighborhoods into sacrifice zones where residents breathe in carcinogens. The EPA allows it. We map the hotspots. ProRepublica.org highly recommends it. It's terrible. Without healthy living, moderately healthy living, expectation of healthy living, there is no progress. Progress is halted, it's stopped. Without halting, just this insanity, while our hair and teeth fall out. This is the most detailed map of cancer-causing industrial air pollution in the United States. Imagine the Midwest and the Northeast would be pretty bad. This has the metal group, metal core, filtration solutions, all the corporations that do much of the polluting. Much of the so let's click inside of a hotspot. Let's go over to Union. No, let's go to Cardinal. So here, 1 in 5,600 or 1.8 times EPA's acceptable risk. This facility has emissions that are estimated 1 in 5,600 excess lifetime cancer risk. Where this is ProRepublica. This is back out. This is Ohio I'm in right now. So if you live in one of these areas in the United States, you might want to check your zip code to find where you are on the scale. Hoping you're not. Hoping anyone I know isn't, but it's absolute madness. Let's go to Detroit. doesn't look like it's loading. Oh, it's huge right here. Union Carbide Corp. Institute Facility. American Electric Power Atmos Plant. So this is just a minor map. I mean, it could be so much more, because what about the capturing of all the liquids and fluids and putting them in these giant beds that eventually leak? You don't see those on this map. You see the companies that are pumping out toxic air, making the air toxic around them. And that's every company that has anything to do with it. Just is, who's going to tell somebody no? Who's going to say, hey, you can't work anymore because your work is damaging the climate? But that's going to be the first step, is wow, all these industries that are poisoning the planet, they need to stop or be reined back. It's only going to cost us jobs, and how are we going to get past this? Besides a universal basic income, eliminating homeless people and stimulating the economy doesn't sound terrible. It's only going to get worse. As you can see in this map, the sacrificial zones are only going to get bigger and sprawl more. And this is only the estimated reach of these facilities. Not, I wouldn't say it's 1-to-1, because you get a lot more carried away in different circumstances, different pollution. What about the plants that are dumping into our rivers? It just feels like it's non-stop. That if it's not the air, it's the water, it's the ground, it's the soil, it's the trees. It's just poison all around us. And there is nothing we can do about it, because I can't even convince my family to stop using Roundup and they're kind of disgusting. Just, it's like a molecule of that, of weed killer, what we call weed killer, because it kills everything. It's just the way they're marketing it. It is only doing more damage, as it has a half-life of a billion years. Every drop that you spray in your garden is going to be around for 500 million years, contaminating the soil, making it die, making it unhealthy, making it sick. You stop seeing snakes, you stop seeing bugs, you stop seeing nature. There is nothing else to do besides sit and wait. It's not going to come back, because what the poison that we sprayed in our yards, our gardens, keeps nature from coming back. Nature doesn't thrive under smoke, and nature doesn't thrive in poison. That's what we're seeing here. Massive regions in the Midwest especially, that are just poisoning the air. And all that doesn't just go 100 feet in one direction. That's the one problem I have with this map, is that it is just an estimate. There's no way of knowing exactly how far the pollution can go, how heavy the sediments and the particulates in the air. They're filtered. It is running out of time. And what are we supposed to do? Everybody's supposed to just quit their jobs and what? How are we supposed to get around this before that there is such a huge catastrophe that there is no work anymore, there is no job, there is no money? What is going to come first, though? Tragic. Tragic seeing everything unfold. Tragic being in a generation that doesn't know nature, can't know nature, because it's too far out there. And most of the nature that we have access to is going to make you sick. Going to get E. coli in the water. Something. Everything makes us sick while we're basically dooming ourselves. Ships and planes. Are we going to stop ships and planes for a day, 2 days, 3 days? We're going to stop all the massive ships that are going around the planet that are dropping, picking stuff up? Are we going to put a moratorium on fishing? And I do mean as a species. None of these things, I think, are going to happen. So what's going to happen is that we're just going to keep playing musical chairs. We're going to keep putting ourselves in different positions. But the world is changing rapidly in such a manner that every few weeks it seems like there is a new great message to give to the world from the UN. Like, yeah, everything's screwed. And we're failing as a species. We don't get another opportunity at this. The fact that we're just ignoring it, and people that are very rich think that they're safe from this, and no. They don't live on another planet, and there is no such thing as a closed system. Pollution, anxiety, contagion goes from country to country and doesn't stop. Unless we're prepared to meet it. But I have to literally just even try and doing the little things for the environment. You know, people look at you differently whenever you kind of call them out. Like, why do you have 10 gallons of Roundup in your garage? You don't need that much, but how are you going to throw it away now? It gets worse as you start having to throw things away and start figuring things out that can't go in a landfill, this can't go here, this can't go in a city dump. What are you supposed to do with it? You stock up on all this poison, and the only thing we know how to do is just spray it into the lawn, spray it into the garden. Alright, I thank you for watching, thank you for listening. If you haven't already, please like the stream and subscribe to the channel. We have 2 years to save the world from climate crisis. Thank you for listening. Please take care. You know what? I forgot about South Sudan. I'll have to revisit South Sudan with a new stream. But I assure you that... No, actually, you know what? I can probably do it here. Volcano that we're looking at. One more. And just zoom in. And this is a wetland right here. Largest wetland on the planet. And that is smoke. You see it just tearing its way through all those individual fires. It's huge. Alright. I think that's all I can take right now. I thank you again for watching. Thank you again for your interest in these topics. It's going to take a world to advance to the point that we're understanding that we leave more than just footprints, more than just tire tracks. Take care.